Muslims love to say things like, show me in the Bible, where does Jesus say, I am God, worship me? Of course, they want these exact words. Never mind the fact that the deity of Christ is taught throughout the New Testament. Many passages such as 1 Corinthians 15 and Philippians 2, they give us early eyewitness accounts of the deity, death, and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. But what about the Old Testament? What if I could show you the deity of Christ from the Old Testament? Do we find the idea of a divine son in the Old Testament? Do we find the idea of placing our faith in this son? Do we find this divine son judging the world someday? Well, the answers are yes, yes, and yes. And there are several places that we could go, but let's look at Psalms 2. Here in verse 2, the psalmist speaks of rulers who take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, that is, the Messiah. The Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, literally says, and against his Christ. If we continue on to verses 7 and 8, the Lord speaks to the Messiah saying, my son, today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance. Folks, Psalms 24 says that all the nations of the world belong to God. Job 34:24 says that the one who will break the nations is God. Jeremiah 15:19 through 23, the one who will shatter the nations is God. All of these great and mighty works are now being applied to the Son of God here in Psalms 2. Look at the pronouns referring back to the Son in verse 12. Do homage or worship the Son so that he does not become angry, for his wrath may soon be kindled. How blessed are those who take refuge in him. So you not only have the call to worship the Lord and his Son, but now the reader is told to trust in the Son, take refuge in him. Every time we find this Hebrew word that's here in the Psalms, it speaks of trusting in the Lord, trusting in God every single time. So these are not ideas that were invented by the Apostle Paul. This is not something that the Christians invented or borrowed from the pagans. These are not ideas that come into existence at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Long before the New Testament church, this is what the Jews believed about our triune God and his Son.